Norbert, so please tell us a little bit about the historic relationship that you've had with your county council and county council members. Has there ever been tension? Did you ever feel that a referendum like the one that's on the ballot here in Wycomico could ever or will ever happen in Cecil County?
There's never been tension. No. Of course there's been tension. Of course there has. Because there should be. That is part of the checks and balances that we experience, that we should have. That tests the mettle of your position, and it, sometimes brings you together where you need to figure out a solution between the council and the county executive. But there absolutely has been tension, and I look at it as a good thing. Those are the checks and balances that we all talk about. If there weren't tension and everything were just like, aye, aye, Captain, well, that's not how it's supposed to be. So it's a good thing. It's called democracy, and we like it. It's frustrating sometimes. Ultimately, you have to work through it, but it is part of the way things work. And so could it happen in my county? It's a wild world out there. But I will say, we have only been a charter government for just around 12 years. And, certainly that is new enough, fresh enough, where some council people remember, a commissioner form of government and would maybe be interested in seeing that go back, because they can, curry a little favor and maybe, have a little less accountability at times and feel like they can point the finger there and point the finger there. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. But, I think that overall it is a really positive thing to have the checks and balances and that tension that you naturally have.
Thank you. I just want to note, I think it's interesting kind of the similarities between Cecil County and Wycomico County in terms of the path towards having a county executive position, because here in Wycomico, I believe our population is just over 100,000 as well. And our community chose to form a county executive position back in 2006, which was 18 years ago, but still very similar. Our next question comes from Josh.
This one also goes to County Executive Hornberger. Please talk to us about how much time you spend in Annapolis on various efforts advocating for the citizens of Cecil County. And then also tell us if you think a council-only form of government can be as effective in advocating in Annapolis as well.
Yeah, so I think we alluded to this a little bit before, but the ability to speak one-on-one, not only to the delegation, but all our folks down in Annapolis, in the administration and so forth, is streamlined, right? So it's streamlined, and it's not just you're only hearing from the county executive if you're in Annapolis, but I think it's much easier and quicker to pick up the phone or to, have a quick meeting with the county executive or a county executive and the council president, even if they have differing opinions and different points of view, than it is to have those 7 different commissioners. I spend a lot of time down in Annapolis during session, especially, of course, in this day and age, and so I too am very grateful that so many people are here, and we drove a few hours to get here, so we're glad that there's a lot of public interaction. But in this day and age, we do have the ability to meet virtually, and we text, we're on the phone with our senators and our delegates and, you know, those folks that, that work in the administration. And so it is, it's a responsibility that as the county executive with one job and no other job, no part-time position with a full-time job that we also have, which is often the case with commissioners. We're full on during session especially, so a lot of time and energy is spent down in Annapolis, and it's not, distracted by anything else.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Bill Chambers.
This is for Worcester County Administrator Weston Young. Weston, you've lived both experiences. During your service in Wycomico County, you were an assistant county administrator working under a county executive. You saw firsthand the tensions and frictions that sometimes come between the county executive and the county council. Now you're the county administrator in Worcester County, where you work for 7 county commissioners. What insights might you provide on the differences between the two forms of government? And if you care to share, do you have an opinion on which form of government works best?
Loaded question.
Yeah.
Very.
When I first got the call to consider this panel, I'll tell you, I've been pretty much thinking about this nonstop because I worked 5.5 years for Wycomico. Started off as a deputy public works director. I never paid attention to politics at that time, my entire public works and public sector career. We had a new executive a month later. The director of public works went shortly thereafter. I got the opportunity to step up into that, and about 1.5 years down the road, I stepped up into the executive's office. I've been torn because the way things work now in Worcester is we have part-time commissioners and they meet twice a month. So if you need something voted on, you have to get it on the agenda usually a week before the meeting, and then you have to wait. The upside of that is you don't make hasty decisions. It usually gives time for the council or commissioners, in my case, to review. And then have a meeting where they discuss it. Downside is when we're trying to hire people, especially in this type of job market, you can't wait 2 to 3 weeks to tell somebody after an interview that, yes, we got the approval to hire you. Usually they have another job by then. So one of the ways we've tried to handle that is through a vote by email process, or something we would handle in emergency situations. We don't use that lightly, and the more you use that, the less transparent you are. Now, typically when you're hiring, the public isn't, privy, but when you're a legislative body and you're going into closed session to, like, my commissioners, they announce to discuss the hiring of a Parks and Rec superintendent or something like that. You tend to know what they're going to discuss in close. So it's a whole lot slower process. And like I mentioned earlier, I think as a county hits a certain size, you want to go executive just to speed that up because it could take forever. So again, I like the speed of that. I will say, and a little selfish here, the benefit of the commissioner form of government is there's a bit more stability. We kind of touched on the pros and cons of if you're happy with those folks. But in Wycomico, if you're a department head, the executive has to appoint you. And every 4 years, he or she has to appoint you. And then the council has to confirm you. Now, there's several issues with that. Most people, there were good deputy directors that I had in the county. There were good superintendents I had that would make good directors, but nobody wanted to put their neck out there, knowing every 4 years, well, one, any day the executive, you're at will here, so any day the executive could walk in and be like, sorry, it's your last day. But then every 4 years, assuming the executive's happy with you, you have to go before council and they have to confirm it. And while I was never under the gun, I think I worked well with council, and hopefully they can say the same for me. when I was here. There's an unfair part of that where you're being judged by part-time people that are not working with you day in, day out. And, you know, that's the thing that you limit your pool of potential applicants or good department heads if they know, hey, I'm a consummate professional in my field, and every 4 years I could lose my job. Like, this isn't like a secretary, you know, with the governor. It's not that big of a role. It's an important role, don't get me wrong. And I don't know if they've ever filled the public works director spot since Dallas Baker left. But, you know, it's just, you have these things. I mean, the county attorney was fired while I was there, and 99% of his work was with us, with the executive branch. And he was fired by somebody who really didn't work with him that much. So selfishly, why I like the commissioner form of government from a staffing standpoint is there's more stability where I am. And my department heads are not under the gun. As long as they do their jobs, they're good. It takes 4 votes. And it takes 4 votes. And you have to have all 4 of them adequately angry enough to get rid of said department head. And, you know, we've had it while I've been there. But again, it should be a rarity. And you have, you know, you just don't realize what it does to your workforce when you don't have a department head. Or you have one that's scared to you know, scared of their shadow given everything. I think you can fix that. If you change nothing here, I would say at least give your department heads contracts so that they can land on their feet. And maybe you can start getting more people willing to put their necks out there, because it's not easy. And I'll just close. I know I'm probably over my 2 minutes. Like, I was told a lot here. Don't take it personal. This is politics. And it's hard not to take it personally when you want to be a good public servant, when you care about your projects, and then you're basically publicly humiliated or otherwise at a meeting. So I'm torn. I appreciate my time here. I appreciate the opportunities Executive Culver gave me and the council for the ones that are here for confirming me each time. But it's a stressful process, and I don't have to deal with that as much now in Worcester. So.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Mike Dunn.
And this is for Mr. Weldon. So you have such a diverse background, which you shared with us, both in and out of the public sector. From your current seat as president of the Frederick Chamber of Commerce, and from your former positions, including 8 years in the General Assembly. What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of a commissioner-only form of government or a county executive form of government, specifically as it relates to effectiveness, overall effectiveness in Annapolis?
So my friends that are here from the Fourth Estate would say I stole my lead, because I answered this very early on when I said, I don't know from the standpoint of the legislative process that it makes a difference whether it's a county council or commissioners or a county executive in the General Assembly, because that effectiveness is literally driven by the members of your Wicomico County delegation to the Maryland House of Delegates and the Maryland State Senate, where it matters. And the reason I supported the charter change in 2014 in Frederick County, and I strongly supported it. When it first came up, 21 years prior, I opposed it. But when it came up in 2014, I strongly supported the change to a charter form, even though the first county executive, I didn't vote for her. I knew her really well. We sat next to each other as county commissioners. But I still strongly supported the change in form of government because I worked with Bob Ehrlich, Martin O'Malley, Larry Hogan, and what I saw were 7 county executives from the most populous counties in the state who could go directly to the governor or go directly to the governor's chiefs of staff to solve problems in their counties that the less populous counties simply didn't have that access. Frederick County, by nature of population, became number 8. The big 7, Frederick County became number 8. And that ability to deal directly with the administration, the deciders, was the reason that I supported the change in structure and form of government. In our last countywide election, Our county executive, Jessica Fitzwater, was elected. She called me the night, because it took 9 days to certify the vote. She called me the 9th day. I was sitting at home in our living room and my cell phone rang. And it said Jessica Fitzwater. So I answered. I've known Jessica for years. And she said, I have a question to ask you. I'd like you to co-chair my transition. I said, Jessica, let me give you a politics 101 refresher. Back when I served, I was a Republican. You are a progressive Democrat. There probably are members of your base that aren't going to love that you're asking a former Republican and now President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce to co-chair your transition process. And her answer, I think, is inherent in the choice you all have to make. Her answer was, but Rick, you are the CEO of the Chamber. You work every day with the small businesses that drive the economy of this county. Who better to advise me on the decisions that are going to face my administration? I wouldn't have had that conversation with a 7-member county council. I had that conversation with the person who was elected county executive.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Josh Bolton.
Mr. Weldon, we'll follow up on that a little bit. As you mentioned, the Frederick County exec position is also relatively new, electing its first executive in 2014. Given all of the hats that you've worn, more broadly speaking, if you could walk us through the pros and cons of an executive versus a council-only government.
Yeah, I stole my lead again
Yep.
with my story. I view Jan Gardner, the former county executive who served 2 terms, our first county executive, and Jessica Fitzwater, who probably, when it comes to how we line up ideologically, we're probably pretty different. I view the fact that there is a person, when I go to the ballot box in 2 years, that I will hold accountable for how my county tax dollars have been managed operationally. A person. Not 7, 2 at large, 5 by legislative district, because only one of those 5 represents my interest specifically on the council. There is one person that I'm either going to vote for or against based on the operational control exhibited. And I got to tell you, this county executive is one of the most effective county executives in the state of Maryland. And you can cross a border, literally a county border, and go from a chaos managerial situation into a very thoughtful, deliberate, intentional exercise. And you know what that is? That's you exercising your right to vote. And it's not the human being who occupies the seat. It's the person that you elect based on your values, what drives you, your interests. That's but again, I stole my lead. Keep doing that.
Our next question comes from Bill Chambers.
Question, you've covered some of this, but maybe we could peel back the onion a bit more. Worcester, as we all know, does not have a county executive form of government. It's just you and the commissioners. So tell us how the Worcester government operates, and specifically, if you can, tell us about the ability of a county administrator to both work for the commissioners who are part-time and to look out for and look forward to the needs of the citizens and voters in Worcester County.
So one big difference in Worcester is each of the commissioners has a distinct district. There's no at-large. So what that tends to do, I don't have a better phrase for it other than horse trading, but doing a project in one district, why do I care if it's not my district? And it's a lot of just, okay, sometimes you get coalitions forming and all that. What we have to do on a regular basis when we're asked to do something is we typically say, all right, is this something we can do without needing a majority vote? Sometimes it's the easy cop-out, and again, government employees can sometimes get crap for not being the most productive or efficient. It's easy for me to tell a commissioner that's trying to get something done to say, all right, we need to bring this up and get get everybody to vote on it, to give us direction. You know, we have to make judgment calls each day. Is this something that we can just go fix? Or is this something that we need the direction because this is a much bigger tactic? But yeah, it's, I touched on it earlier, waiting 2 weeks or 2 times a month to get something approved is just really slow. And having come from the executive branch in Wycomico, like if I had to choose a branch of government, I'd like the executive branch because it's where you get things done. So now, if we want to do something, it pretty much, we need to get at least 4 votes. I strive for unanimous. I want all 7 of them voting on it. You heard anything about our sports complex, proposed sports complex? They were, again, the folks at the time had a 4-3 majority for a sports complex, and I knew all it took was 1 election, and all the work and all the time I put in is for naught. I could package some of it up and hand it off to Ocean City to see if they want to take it across the finish line, but we had that happen, and then it's like, all right, we got to turn the ship back, and we basically unwound everything the 4-3 majority did. That's very similar to changing out an executive in a way, is you say, all right, we're not happy with him or her, we're going to vote, move them out, then we'll go the other way. So it's something, I have to work with a 7-headed body, and I have to know each of their personalities, and, who has, affinity for something, who is going to get, for lack of a better phrase, triggered over something, and how's the way to present it. So, again, the hardest thing is when staff feels this is a good governance, good for the citizens thing to put forward, and I don't know if I have the votes because of it was handled poorly in the past. So it's been a lot of trust building since I came to Worcester. I think, I know without a doubt, every one of my commissioners, wants the best for the citizens, and I feel they step up and they act more like a statesman each day. But I also have to recognize they're part-time. Some of them have other jobs. Some are retired. And they don't always have the time. So I constantly tell staff it is up to us to get them up to speed. And again, I've mentioned it briefly before. When you have a full-time executive, they're typically in the trenches. They know the topic very well. They can talk confidently about it. For me, we still have our president go up and talk to the governor, but we have to get him all his talking points. We have to then answer all his questions. He's been doing other stuff during the day. And that doesn't mean he's not passionate and he won't, send our message forward, but we have to put more effort in prep. And that's what I signed up for. So.
Thank you. All right. I believe we're going to go back to our questions for all of the panelists now.